peace and tranquility. Our house was as quiet as ever. I was cooking dinner, and my husband James would be home soon. Our son, Ethan, was now 20 years old. I remembered every step he took, every word he said in his early years. And now, in front of me, was a grown, statuesque young man whom I began to understand less and less as the years passed. After 18 years, at one point, I noticed, as I turned around, how his gaze completely encompassed my figure, which made me very wary. His gaze froze for a few seconds, lingering on my neck, shoulders, and chest. After dinner, we watched TV as usual, but James still wasn't home. Family nights like that made me happy. I froze for a moment, remembering the way Ethan had looked at me. My mind began to swarm with all sorts of thoughts. I suddenly realized that I was increasingly seeing him, not as the little boy who'd once been running under the table, but as a grown man. This realization was confusing, and I tried to push it away, but it was taking over more and more of my attention. The dawn light from the window, the quiet romantic movie, the peaceful atmosphere I loved so much, it was all supposed to be familiar, safe. Suddenly, Ethan moved closer to me, almost imperceptibly. His hand lightly touched mine. I felt goosebumps run all over my body, a spark slipping inside, instantly thrilling me. The sensation was so unexpected that I jumped up as if waving away an obsession, trying to chase away the strange, unfamiliar situation. My heart was pounding frantically in my chest. I hurried to the kitchen for a glass of cold water, trying to cool my own emotions. Ethan remained on the couch and asked, in a casual voice, "Mom, are you okay?" His tone was calm, but I could hear the worry in his voice. "Yeah, I'm fine," I answered hastily, trying not to show embarrassment. "I'm just tired." I went back into the living room and sat on the edge of the couch, away from him, trying to pull myself together. We continued watching the movie, but now in complete silence. I didn't know how to act. My heart was still racing, and for the first time, my mind was racing with thoughts I couldn't stop. I loved him so much. This was my son. I put all my best efforts into raising him, trying to make his upbringing perfect. But now, something inside me was breaking that ideal. After about 15 minutes, I got up and said, "I'm going to bed." "No offense, please stay by yourself." I tried to smile, but my voice shook. When I got into bed, I couldn't stop thinking, what was it? What had I felt? I tried to justify myself, telling myself it was just an illusion, just a weird thought in my head, and that it would pass. But the more I thought, the more the realization came I had crossed some invisible line. I didn't want to feel this way. I didn't want to go into these thoughts. It's not normal. It's just fatigue, I told myself. The next morning, I woke up as usual, but something was no longer right. When I walked into the kitchen, Ethan was sitting at the table calmly eating a bacon roll and drinking coffee. On the other half of the table was my breakfast portion. I stopped, a little surprised. "You surprised me," I said with a smile, feeling something inside of me tingle. My legs were trembling a little. I tried to be calm, but in that moment, I realized I was fixated on what had happened. I'd gotten myself too worked up, and now I was seriously wondering if it was time to see a counselor. Ethan looked up and replied, slurping, "Good morning, Mom." His voice was so normal that I was suddenly relieved. Maybe it really was just my weird thoughts. I didn't know if I should ask him about it or try to deal with it on my own. But his presence, his closeness, it was as if he was the strength I reached for in moments of doubt. This was my son, after all. I took a deep breath and made up my mind. "Ethan, could you help me today?" My son shook his head but tried to make it sound as natural as possible. "Sure, Mom," he answered readily. Nothing unusual had happened. I wasn't entirely sure why I'd said that. Maybe I just needed a distraction to get away from all these disturbing thoughts and feel normal. "Damn it, he's my son, calm down." Enough is enough, I kept telling myself. "It's okay. We're just going on a little road trip." An hour later, we were on our way in the pickup truck. The weather was delightful, the air fresh, and the sky clear and blue. Everything seemed so peaceful that I was even ashamed of the stupid things I thought of the night before. We chatted about his parties, his new friends, and his now adult life. It was the kind of easy conversation that made me smile happy, proud. He had grown so much, and what a joy it was for me to hear his stories. Laughter filled the car as he suddenly shouted, "Stop! Stop, Mom! Let's stop here! Look how beautiful it is!" He waved his arms excitedly, his eyes burning with enthusiasm. I laughed, feeling his carefree joy, and gave in. "Okay, you talked me into it. Just don't yell like that," I said, pulling the car to a stop. We stepped out of the truck. The silence of the forest and the perfect beauty of nature surrounded us. The clean air filled my lungs, and for a moment, I felt completely calm. I closed my eyes, savoring this moment. But suddenly, Ethan stepped closer, almost right up to me. I opened my eyes and looked up at him. His face was so close, and there was something in his eyes that I hadn't noticed before. "Mom," he said quietly, and there was something new and different in his voice. "You know how important you are to me, don't you?" I felt goosebumps run down my spine at those words, at his gaze full of a feeling I didn't understand. Again, that strange, forbidden sensation pierced me. I looked up at him, trying to keep control of myself. "Of course, darling," I said, trying to sound calm. "You're my son, and you're the most important person in the world to me." I took a step back to get some distance. "I love you so much. You're the most precious thing in the world to me," Ethan said in a low whisper. A tear rolled down my cheek. I didn't realize it was so awkward to hear my son say those words, but it was so exciting and pleasant at the same time. "Yes, me too. I love you too," I said, barely containing my emotions. He gripped my hand tightly, and his cold, almost penetrating gaze settled on my face. A shuddered fear lodged deep inside me like an intruder. I couldn't believe it was happening. In real life, my whole body tensed, like a string ready to burst at the slightest touch. "Do you feel fear and embarrassment?" My voice was barely audible, almost a whisper, but I felt like every sentence I said could ruin everything. He didn't answer right away. There was something new and unrecognizable flashing in his eyes. "That's not it," he said. My words trailed off. I didn't know how to continue or explain to him that everything I felt was a wall between us that couldn't be crossed. "It's not supposed to be like this." I tried to find the right words, so as not to hurt him, not to ruin this moment. "I'm not afraid or embarrassed. I'm just telling the truth. It can't be any other way. I feel it." His voice was calm, but there was something inevitable, almost tragic in it. "Please, let's keep going." "I can't," I whispered, trying to stay calm, even though everything inside me was screaming. My emotions were like the strings ready to break at any moment. I knew he was confused about how he felt, and he needed help. Words rushed through my head at an incredible speed, but none of them felt right. I didn't want to hurt him, but I couldn't let this situation go any further either. "You see," I barely managed to get it out, feeling the lump in my throat grow larger. "I love you, but as a son, I can't let us destroy what we have between us. Our pure love, it's sacred. Please understand me." I saw his face change. Frustration, resentment, and perhaps understanding all hit at once. He lowered his head, like a child who had been told that something was out of reach, that you couldn't just take what you wanted. He looked as young as when I had scolded him for his scattered toys. Pain shot through me. How could I have seen him like that? I couldn't say another word. I just led him to the car. We got into it in complete silence. It was a long drive, much longer than usual. We drove for 15 or 20 minutes, but it felt like everything inside me stopped. There was no point going to my friend's house anymore. We were in a state where our thoughts weren't even clear. All I could think about was how heartbroken he was. I turned the car around. It would take forever to get home, but I knew it was where we had to go, where things could get back to normal or at least try to. When we got home, He jumped out of the car faster than I could turn off the engine and disappeared into his room. I felt the anger and frustration wash over me with renewed intensity. How could this have happened to me? I had always tried to be the best mother I could be, giving him all my love, supporting him in everything. I raised him to be a strong, brave man, not letting him become a mama's boy. I put all my soul and warmth into him, sometimes forgetting that I am not a soulless machine, but an ordinary woman who also needs support and care. And when it all fell apart, I was insanely hurt. All day long, I tried to approach him, distract him with housework, offer help, or just talk. But every time, he shut me out and left, not wanting to even look in my direction. As night fell, I lay in bed, feeling a tremendous sense of guilt fill me. How could I have ruined his world, his feelings? I just wanted his happiness, but I think I only hurt him instead. Lying in the dark, I could hear my heart pounding. Suddenly, there was a quiet knock on the door. My breath hitched. It was him. I prayed to myself that he wouldn't knock again, wouldn't come, wouldn't ruin this fragile silence.